Good morning. A few announcements before we get going. Get them out to where I can read them. March 6th, 2 Sundays from now, Cody Thomas will be here preaching basically in the old language in view of a call, but to be affirmed by the church. We will vote that week after the service is over and have a potluck meal afterwards. So prepare for the potluck meal. Prepare to come and vote that week. The meal depends on the vote? No, we're going to have the meal no matter what the vote is. No matter what the vote is, we will have the meal. And if we have to cancel the... No, just keep going. I'm still retiring on the 20th. So, remember that. Blast tonight.
Mardi Gras celebration.
Mardi Gras celebration. Jen got a lot of beads last night, and so she'll be giving some of them away. Youth tonight at 5 o'clock. A week from tomorrow morning, 6:30 to 8:30, we will be giving away coffee here in the parking lot. So if you want to sign up for that,
If you can volunteer and be here, we're going to be here at 6 o'clock on that Monday morning. Let me or Maddie know. So 6 o'clock on that Monday morning until 9 o'clock by the time they leave. And you're not having to make coffee. So if you're not good at making coffee, that doesn't matter. Someone's doing that. You just have to come, be a smiling face, and greet people and help direct traffic. So nothing major.
Giving away these cards that say Oak Grove Baptist Church, and come visit us. You're invited to come to church. So if you want to be a part of that, 6:30 to 8:30, a week from tomorrow morning. We'll have that on our message board for a couple of days before that so that people will know. I believe that's it. Oh, March 6th. March 19th, we have my retirement dinner, I guess. I don't know what y'all are calling it. Party. And you're supposed to come dressed like you did in the 80s, if you still have them. I have some of those clothes. I can't fit in them. So we're going to hang them up. So that's, I don't know what time it is. It's up on the board somewhere.
Well, more information to follow.
More information to follow. And do we need to make reservations for that?
No, more information to follow.
Okay, because my family's coming in for this,
Yep, you got it.
acting the fool. 19th, that's on the 19th. 20th is the last sermon. And then we have a guest speaker for a couple weeks and go. Daniel? One of the things I forgot to mention during the prayer time is that UAB has contacted me, and I will be going there probably in late April for an evaluation on the transplant for the kidney. That doesn't mean I'll be accepted by them, but at least we have a new step in a new place, and it's get to go visit Casey and the grandchildren while we do that, so that's a good thing too. Today, as Jim was talking about, Mark 4:35 to 41, the stilling of the storm. A little alliteration there that's hard to say, but the passage there, on the same day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side." Now, when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there is a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Jesus had been teaching by the Sea of Galilee all through the day, probably in the stern of the boat backed towards the land, the people on the shore there. One of the things that I read, I don't know, probably 20, 30 years ago, is that the shoreline of Galilee there on the western shore where they were often makes a very amphitheater-like situation. So if you were teaching from the ocean up to the shoreline, you would have a group of people able to listen to you and to hear things in a very clear and real way. And so it was a perfect place for Jesus to teach from the boat to the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And John 1:1-3 reads this way, In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him. Without him, nothing was made that was made. When I read this 20, 30 years ago, the author said, Jesus carved out the sea line of the Sea of Galilee during the creation, according to the Gospel of John. So Jesus made the amphitheater that he would preach in during creation. I like that thought. And that he prepared for himself the places that he would preach. And since Jesus was the Word and he made all things, he made those beaches there on the western side of the Sea of Galilee. And so he's taught all day there, and he's taught apparently in the boat. Evening came, and it's time to leave, and he tells them, let's go over to the other side. Well, they're on the western side of the Sea of Galilee, and they'd be going over to the eastern side. Why would you go over to the eastern side? Well, first, you escape the crowd that has followed him here, there, and everywhere. He's in a boat, they're not in a boat. He can escape the crowd. Second, he may be going to an area that he's not preached in before and is able to hear, or able to preach to a new situation. Or third, he may be going to rest in a place of recuperation like he's done before in the northern part of the Sea of Galilee. So there are all these things there and all these places, opportunities to leave, but every one of them brings him from the Sea of Galilee on the western shore towards the eastern shore that is there. And one of the things that Mark adds to the journey that Luke and Matthew do not is that other boats had gathered around Jesus while he was teaching. They had seen the crowd. They had sailed over to where Jesus was, probably listened to him, and it seems like some of these boats seem to follow him towards the east. And so one of the things that Mark's gospel makes out of this miracle of the stilling of the storm is that there were probably other witnesses, other boats that were following along that were in the same storm, that were in just as much danger as the disciples were in their boat, and saw Jesus calm the storm, and they too were saved in that situation. And so it's probably a true assumption that there were several witnesses to the eventual stilling of the storm by Jesus that night. And they certainly would have headed out in good weather. And Jesus, having taught all day long, people don't realize how speaking wears you out. But I take a nap every Sunday afternoon. And so Jesus laid down in the back of the boat. And there was in the back of a boat, and I don't know why there was the back of a fishing boat, a place for the honored guest. But that honored guest had a seat with a cushion on it, and Jesus lay down on that cushion after teaching from that cushion all day long and fell asleep, probably while they were still in good weather. And so they're headed out, but the Sea of Galilee was famous for having violent storms just appear out of nowhere. And part of the reason for those violent storms was the direction that they were going. On the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee, mountains rose out of the Sea of Galilee up to 2,000 feet. And winds came down the ravines of those mountains and created storms there on the Sea of Galilee. And so, although they were heading out in good weather, the weather could change all the time. They are heading out into darkness, so they're heading into a nighttime. They're heading into what was good weather, but what turned out to be bad weather. And the storm comes. A great windstorm comes. The wind comes down through the ravines of the eastern mountains onto the sea, causing waves to create. And we have a common fishing boat, not a big boat, a boat actually designed to be dragged up on land so that the catch of the day could be unloaded and brought ashore there at the shore. So the boats were not deep in draft. They were not deep in sides. And they're not fishing, so they don't have a catch that is there, but there's 12 disciples plus Jesus in this boat. And so this boat is at its capacity for weight. And suddenly they are in what appears to be one of the storms of their lives. They are people who have been on the water all of their adult life, probably much of their child life in boats. They have experienced storms on the Sea of Galilee, but apparently none like this storm for them. And so they're in the middle of the storm, and the winds have come down. They've created waves. The waves are coming over the sides of the ship. They're probably having to bail out water that is there. They are in fear that they're going to go down in the middle of the Sea of Galilee in the middle of the night. And while they're in the worst storm of their life, Jesus is sleeping in the back of the boat. And as I said, when they sailed off, he was tired. He lay down. He went to sleep in good weather. And very likely, not only are they in danger, but any boats that followed them that night are in danger of going down in the middle of the ocean, the Sea of Galilee, there in the middle of the night. And so the disciples see Jesus sleeping, and they go and wake him up. And one of the things that the disciples say in Mark that they don't say in Matthew and Luke, they accuse Jesus of not caring whether they perish or not. Master, do you not care if we perish here in this storm? Some people that I read this week think it was Peter that said this. Peter has the audacity to say whatever is on the top of his mind. It might have been his boat. There's several theories that he was the captain of this boat, so he was in the stern with Jesus. He was the one, I sort of think all 12 of them came in a group and said, do you not care that we're going to die out here with you on the ocean? And Jesus doesn't answer that question. But he wakes up, stands up, and says, peace be still. 3 simple words. And as soon as those words come out of his mouth, as strong as the storm was, it's just exactly opposite calm. It went from raging sea to calm, flat sea. Just from the words of 3 words. Peace, be still. Literally, he's saying, be silent, be muzzled, quit this. It's the same words he said to the demonic person in Mark 1:25. The very same words said in Mark 1:25. Peace be still. Doesn't take much out of Jesus' mouth to change the situation. 3 simple words. And as soon as they were said, calm was among the face of the Sea of Galilee. And then he responds to the disciples and says, why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? The disciples had seen Jesus face demoniacs, face disease, face death, now face the storm of a lifetime, and still they'd not had faith to say themselves, peace be still. They'd seen the words used before, but they did not have the faith to do that. This is before Peter's confession of faith at Caesarea Philippi that says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. They've taken the ministry of Jesus up to this point, and they still don't know what to do about it. In fact, they seem to be more fearful because Jesus was able to calm the storm. They say among themselves, who is this who the wind listens to? Who can calm the storm? They'd been the storm of a lifetime. They saw a man say 3 words and it become peace. Who is this that is in front of them that could do this? They were in a learning situation. Learning who Jesus was, learning how to trust him, learning how to exercise their same faith. And they were not ready to do that at this point. And Jesus sort of admonishes them for not being able to express their faith in this situation. And so what kind of storms do we go through that we are there? Jen talked about regular storms versus Arizona storms. Got dirt in Arizona, got rain here. I've been through hurricanes in a car and in a house. I've prayed through both of them. And I've found peace in both situations because eventually I realized that God was in control of what would happen to me. I've been through cancer and learned to pray and find peace within that situation. The biggest storms that come into most of our lives is sorrow. Loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a situation. The major loss that I see in people's lives are those that survive a child. Doesn't matter if the child is an adult or a child is a child. When a parent survives a child, it's the worst grief that I see. And yet, when we take this to God, the sorrow never goes away, but peace comes in that situation. God gives us peace by assuring us that it is in his hands. The life of that person is in his hands. He gives us peace by telling us, as believers, we will see this person again. The hurt doesn't go away, but peace does come in sorrow. Then there are the storms of the problems of our lives, things that just overwhelm us, that we don't know what to do and we don't know how to get out of it, and we take it to God and we find peace in that situation. We find that he takes us out of that situation. It's not always the way that we thought it would happen. It's not always the way that we ask for it to happen, but we find that God has an answer and he can bring us peace in that situation too, of the problems that come within our lives. Then there are the storms that many of you have, and doesn't seem to bother me as much as you. Anxiety. Just never been a person where anxiety has been a part of my life, but I know that anxiety is a part of many of y'all's lives. And the worst thing about worry is it turns things into things that are never going to happen. We get anxious and we worry about this, that, or the other, and it never comes out that way. And when we take our anxiety to God, he can bring us peace within that situation and show us it's not going to turn out the way we imagine, but it's going to turn out the way that would honor and glorify him. He gives us peace in that situation. What the disciples didn't have that night but would have in their lives eventually is peace at the end of faith being exercised. What you and I can learn out of this example is that we need to have faith. We need to exercise our faith and take our faith to God in this and let him know of our sorrows, of our problems, of our anxieties, of our disease, and let him bring peace to that situation. What the disciples didn't understand was that the man that was before them could still the winds, could still the demoniac, could still disease, could defeat death. The man that was before them would give his life upon the cross so that they might live, be forgiven, and have eternity with him. When we realize that, we can know peace in every storm of our lives. When we realize that, we can exercise faith in that situation that the disciples could not exercise that night. Thursday, it was supposed to rain like crazy. And I was working on this sermon, and I said, I wonder if I went out and said, peace, be still, would it quit raining? I didn't. Because, A, I like rain. Rain's a good thing for me. But I wasn't ready to exercise that kind of faith to stop a storm because I didn't want the storm stopped. But I've prayed for other storms to stop, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But I find peace within those storms, in those situations. We're going to have storms in our life. And we need to take it to the man who can bring peace in every situation. We need to trust in a God that triumphs over death, disease, troubles, and fears. To trust in a God that sent his Son to be sacrificed for our sin. To trust in a Son that will give us forgiveness and eternal life. To trust today that situation of faith within our lives. And let it change every storm in our life to a place of peace. Trust in the peace of God today. Come to that peace in salvation today, if that is your need. Stand and sing with the praise team. Step out and make decision to accept Christ as Savior, to commit to making your life more strong for Him each and every day. Strengthen your faith. Exhibit it today. Stand and sing. Step out as God leads you.